Hey, welcome to another quarantine chat with Team Kamikaze. This quarantine chat series has been our way of connecting with other creators during a time where we can't go to conventions. I totally miss them. But today I am excited to introduce Neal, the composer of our upcoming Kamikaze animated short, Trial by Fire. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to the quarantine chat series. How are you today?
I am doing well.
Doing well.
You have
Okay.
pause, but I'm doing well.
You know, that pause is just very, I feel weird asking people how they're doing during the pandemic because no one's doing well. It's like,
Oh man.
pause well.
Yeah.
Pause.
Basically, you count the number of M dashes after it. I'm doing
well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, with relativity speaking.
Yeah.
With relativity.
Yeah, I think Einstein might have something to say about the relative time flow during a pandemic.
He would be so hilarious right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Carrie's not with us today. She's a little under the weather, but she's here with us in spirit and upstairs. But yeah, I'm Alan, Savannah, and this is the first quarantine chat of 2021. Like I think when we started this off, it's like, oh yeah, like we'll do like one or two of these things, and then the quarantine will be over. And
This is the first one.
This is the first one of 2021. Yeah.
So you are our special guest, Aaron.
I'm the first? Oh
yes.
My God. I feel so loved.
So Aaron, I wanted to ask you, what's been keeping you occupied during COVID?
Oh man. Oh, that's the first question out the gate. Oh, that's a list. So
there's Doggo. There's Queen.
Yeah, I know. Please don't say her name. It's like saying it's
it's like opening a Kimball cannon.
Like, oh my gosh, she's gonna come in here and be like, someone said my name. She's gonna pop in the video in a few minutes. Other than gosh, I guess for myself, it's really just been work. I teach, and then so I teach game audio, and that's been a lot.
Ooh. Are you teaching virtually?
Yes, thank God.
Yeah, thank God, because not every teacher has that benefit right now.
Man, it's so good that my school just would rather be online. I'm so happy about that. So I get to teach in my pajamas. That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome. To roll out of bed and just go to class, that's amazing. There's nothing better than that. Then what was it? I have so many different projects with my company, Colony 13, that I'm doing. Like we're working with a video game company right now, so I'm doing that on the admin and directive side.
Nice.
And then we're also, because of what we've been doing in VR, so we have a VR component of our company. So we've been doing live shows with some really dope acts. We've done some stuff with our band Sonic Communion. We did some stuff with 2 Chainz already, Sunny Digital.
Oh, wow.
It's really, really cool. So we've got some 360 footage that we're shooting that we use it, and we're in the process of making it VR capable for regular people. So having a space for them to come and with their VR goggles be anywhere in the room. So that's where we're like pushing our business moving forward. And then just still doing compositional work, still working with artists, still, I'm still working in blockchain technology. So coming out of my last tech company and going into some other ventures in technology using blockchain, it's just I've been really, really occupied.
Wow, that's a lot. And you're scoring our animated short. I had no idea you were doing all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like sometimes the days run together, and
I kind of want to jump into it. I think it's so fascinating. I as an animation nerd, I've always kind of like learned about the behind the scenes with animation, but I don't know that much about the scoring. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of scoring and what that process looks like?
So funny thing, scoring for something linear is something that if I'm being honest, is something that I'm the least used to. I'm used to working in the gaming space.
Oh.
So it's kind of like in gaming, things are not necessarily linear. Well, I kind of like how I kind of teach it to my students anyway, is that 2D animation is from point A to point B. It has a beginning point, it has a definite ending point, right? A game doesn't always work that way. So a game, you could start here at A and end at Z. Or
Yeah.
you can start in A and end in X, or or you can start in B and end in some other, like it has, because it doesn't work from just a point A to point B scenario. Every player's interaction with that particular game could be completely different from another player's. So the music has to follow along with it. It has to be just as linear as the gameplay is.
Yeah.
So because of that, I'm used to composing in pieces where this one user experience they may never hear this particular song because they never went to this part of the game to hear it.
Right.
So I'm used to that, I'm used to that particular style of composing. So this was a little different, but the same basic mental criteria is needed. So you're taking a body of work that you're trying to pretty much inhabit what the patron or what the viewer is going to be seeing, and you're trying to pretty much sum up or accompany that visual experience in a musical way that's going to bring out the best in that particular scene or the best in that particular moment. When it comes to Kamikaze, I'm really focusing less on the overarching idea. And
Yeah.
because of my more intimate interactions with, Alan, Carrie, and you, and then the media that in itself, I'm making music more specific to the theme of each character or the focus of their particular moment.
Right.
So even with like developing the theme song for Kamikaze, like really coming up with something that was heroic and triumphant, but just as energetic as Marcatia,
Right.
or those moments where you have the particular fight scenes or whatnot, where there's this feeling of impending doom, like something that's going to give the emotion of intensity or a tense moment in
Right.
the drama per se, but then still having something that's contemporary and something that's accessible. Um, I spent most of my career working in the music industry, where in multiple genres of music, with people from multiple countries. So what we may view here in America as particularly tense is going to be articulated something different in Japan, or
Right.
something different in China, or something different in India, or something different in England or Europe. So, or in a number of other South American countries that we can get into, that all have their individual, musical identity. So having something here that is going to feed into the background of where they are,
Yeah.
when they are,
Yeah.
and who they are, to be able to come up with something musical that feeds to their personal story. And
Yeah.
all of it has to come together into like a couple of minutes of audio.
Oh
It's a
my
lot to get in there.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things that already are very enlightening to me. Things I never thought about, like the fact that Kamikaze has to be heroic, but you also have to maintain Marcatia's energetic nature too.
Right.
That's brilliant. I never even thought about like linear versus non-linear.
Yeah, and nonlinear stuff can get really wildly intricate, and
Oh my gosh.
when it gets pulled off, like really well, like stuff that Supergiant Games does, Darren Korb's stuff for like Hades and stuff like that. That's really
Oh.
fantastic, because they'll have these huge swells of like action thing, and then it'll strip down to like just a bass line playing, and once you've like had the action cut down, and then
Yeah, that's that particular scoring method is I've always known it as vertical, a
okay,
vertical scoring method, where the song is maybe broken down into stems. So
yeah,
you may, depending on where you are on a particular map or interaction with another character, it can be just part of the score, like certain instruments in that particular piece. And then as you move through the level, other instruments can be added in or swapped out to that particular experience. And a lot of times that is through game triggers or map triggers or whatever, or even depending on how you're playing the game, it could also change. There have been plenty of games that use this, like Dead Space and whatnot, that uses mixture of vertical and then other horizontal techniques that you kind of interweave to create a unique player experience. Here it was just me like going strictly off the character, which I enjoyed thoroughly.
Cool. So we know this answer, but for our viewers, Aaron, how did you get involved in Kamikaze?
Oh my gosh, that's a long drawn out thing. I think man, I have to remember because it's been so long.
I don't remember either.
I think it was MomoCon like 2019.
Yeah, it was MomoCon. Yeah, so one of the artists that I work with, my brother, my friend, and my compatriot, the person that calls me at 3:00 in the morning, Ryan Kadesh Flow, he was performing at MomoCon. Him and IQ, he and IQ, pardon me. They were performing at MomoCon with a bunch of other acts at the time, and we ran into you guys at a party, I think, and it just went from there.
Yeah, I think, it might have been the party, or there was like that green room they have set up for folks who are like doing the guest thing, and I think I have this like vague memory of running into you guys there, but yeah, maybe it's like that after party.
It was a party because of some of the things that were going on. It was a party, but I'm not gonna say it. I'm just gonna say there was some other things going on. I distinctly remember some other things going on at the time. Huh?
Was I there?
You were there, Havana.
Very much so.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Oh man, now I really miss convention. Okay, so currently you're working on an end credit song for the short. What's the thematic idea behind it?
Oh man, oh my gosh. I think I was gushing to Alan about this a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing it.
So we were putting together a concept for the ending theme. We're working with a rapper by the name of Jazzy. She's a hip hop artist here in Atlanta. Very, very talented young lady. I've worked with her on another project that I did for a film company here in Atlanta. And she did a great job. We were trying to come up with something that was going to be pushing the boundaries, something that I'm used to. I normally tell people normally when I'm making music, I don't really go for a lot of trend setting stuff. I kind of like to forge my own path, mainly because I mean, I can get away with that type of stuff, but I can do what I want. But for Kamikaze, I actually wanted to focus in for more of electronic feel. Electronic music is something that, in my opinion, is a good place to start when it comes to Kamikaze's auditory identity, I guess, a musical identity. Mainly because it's set in the future, but more so I bring in elements that are more American elements as far as music stuff. So there are elements of hip hop, there are elements of trap music, and when I say trap music, like not trap music as in Euro trap, but like traditional. God, I can actually say traditional American
traditional trap.
It's weird, right? I'm sorry, like that's a strange thing to say, but like Europeans have completely taken trap music into a completely other different direction. And it's an entire genre of its own, but like American trap music as like a much more harder, direct style of Southern hip hop and rap, like having that woven in with EDM in a less, it's kind of weird to say, but like there are certain elements that we're just trying to bring in, and having her in that particular record gives us the ability to do that.
Yeah. No, I think one of the things which really excited me when we started first talking about the music for the short is you were gravitating towards this sort of this musical identity on your own, and as we've been developing out Kamikaze over the last 10 plus years now. We saw a photo recently of us all working together around a dining room table at 9 years ago. 9 years.
Dang, it's been
yeah.
9 years. What the hell?
But like a lot of the music we've been listening to has been like, some Glitch Mob's, work, which, is very much in that vein of EDM meets trap. And,
I also remember a lot of the Tron soundtrack.
Yep.
In the very beginning.
Some drum and bass with like pendulum and stuff like that. So it's always been sort of part of the DNA of how we kind of approached flavoring the thing. So it was really exciting to see you kind of gravitate in that same direction.
Yeah, it just seems like the only thing that makes sense. I mean, obviously there's some things that like you want to throw in there to like make it pretty, but I knew one thing watching Kamikaze and like reading it. Classical music was going to be thrown out of the window.
Yeah.
One play, it just doesn't make sense to me, I guess. And that was like, I love to go into that direction. Don't get it twisted. Like that's my bread and butter, and I enjoy it. That's that's what I love to do.
Right.
And I am a huge sucker for a great composition in that space, or a beautiful who doesn't like a nice Hans Zimmer motif from time to time? Who doesn't like that? However.
Hans can keep his hands out of this one.
Hans
can keep his hands out of this one.
Yeah, but this time I'm going for more of I actually went for like more of a retro EDM style.
Yeah.
I'm not even like something contemporary like a Junkie XL. Like I actually went for something a little more, late 2000s.
Right, a little bit more breakbeat, a little bit, almost a little.
Like something that some bold stuff,
yeah.
or stuff, like, which is weird because I don't even typically listen to that all the time, but for the other jobs that I've done, I always go research. Like that's not a weird thing for me. I just go research a style of music, something that makes sense.
When you research, what are you searching for? What are you looking at?
Typically, I research based on. I have a pretty good working knowledge of different genres of music as far as feel, and that comes from my artist development days. In the industry, just learning how to get into a studio with an artist and like picking out the things that work the best for them.
Yeah.
And then their voice and their abilities, like musical abilities. So ironically enough, I take that same skill set working with artists and I bring that into the composition world too. Or maybe I developed it in the composition world and I brought it today and I'm just bringing it back. I don't know. I guess a chicken and egg conversation for me, but I always, when I hear a body of work, what makes me go look in a particular place is just like the texture and the nature of the particular work. Like, what are the strong points?
Yeah.
What accentuates this the best? Like, for example, if Kamikaze was much more, let's say a dramatic anime or something like that, I probably wouldn't approach it musically as I did now. Like if it was something like, for example, like a Demon Slayer, or let's even pick something slower, like a Joker's Game, or I don't know, what was the other one that I just watched not too long ago? Gosh, I can't remember. Oh, like a Kamikaze Kill.
Okay, yeah.
Like musical identity, I wouldn't even approach it with an electronic music identity the way I do. Right. Because it wouldn't lend itself, it wouldn't work. I would probably do something a little more classical because it lends itself to slowness or a slower pace, and then adding in those classical elements or those electronic elements here and there. So I might choose for something a little more ambient. But because Kamikaze reads much more like an American anime, I can go for a harder style. So I know I can do something that moves, something that has some type of motion or something that has a lot more fast pace. So I don't have to, focus into the pleasantries. So then I say, okay, so what styles of music lend themselves to that?
Right.
And then I go look for music that lends itself to that type of motion.
Yeah.
Oh,
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is there any part of the process that you struggle with? Like what's the hardest part of this?
Well, there's the upstairs neighbor at the moment, but
do we have to talk about that?
but
Man, I'm just like, I don't know who has that horse and stilettos upstairs, but I don't know who. I don't know which one of the neighbors has a whole like barn up there. I have no idea.
Mm.
Like, it's like, where were they throughout the quarantine? Like, there's just no one living there. Like, get out of here. Like, I know I was bumping this music way, way long. It's like now it's all like, can you cut it down? Oh my gosh, I don't even want to have this conversation. See, you got me started, Alan. You got me lit right now. I guess if I had to choose something that I don't know, man, because I'm so used to doing this, it's just kind of like second nature at this point. I just like.
Okay, let me ask it another way. What do most like amateurs struggle with when they're going through this process?
I still consider myself an amateur, if I'm being honest. Mainly because I haven't gotten to a place where I was just like, this is gonna sound terrible, but I haven't got to a place where I can say no to a job. So I haven't gotten there yet. Like it's like I'm too busy. I can't. I got a parent. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I haven't got to that place yet. So I still consider myself an amateur because of it.
I mean, I think a lot of our viewers, a lot of creatives will resonate with that.
Sure. So I still consider myself an amateur, no matter how much work that I have going on. I still don't let myself get to a point where I'm like, yeah, I can afford to not do this. Even if I can afford to not do it, I still have a working man's mentality.
I love
But
that.
I think what trips us all up, and I can say this in the terms of my students that are going into the field as a composer or a sound designer, for sure. What messes a lot of people up is lack of diversity.
Mm. Yeah.
I have some like I call all of my mentees Padawans, so excuse me. But my current Padawan, my current Padawan, he's so caught up in this, in like he has this thing, like he's an anime nerd like me. So anyone who's watched anime in the past decade understands a lot of that music is just a derivative of like classical jazz theory or whatever.
Right.
And that's just what it is. Like those chord structures, if you change the feeling and a little bit of the intonation of some of them, or even it's the I guess even how you approach them, they'd all sound like gospel music. And a lot of people forget the origins of modern day American gospel comes from, stride piano and jazz theory, and it's just a soulful music in general. So when you look at music and anime, a lot of it's just jazz theory being applied in some interesting areas.
Really?
Yeah. So he's so tied up into that, like learning those jazz chords and placements and stuff like that, and having these different, ways of going through. Like I sit there and do that stuff for fun, like because I know what it is, but it also you kind of get away, or you kind of lose a bit of diversity by doing it that way.
Yeah.
The reason why we love people like Hans Zimmer and Atticus Ross and even someone like Ludwig Göransson. The reason why we like these contemporary composers is because they come from a place that isn't typical.
Right.
When you think about like Ludwig, for example, like that dude, I think if I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think like within the same year he got his Grammy for doing work with Childish Gambino, because he's produced for years for Childish Gambino. He got an Oscar, I think he got a nomination at the very least for Black Panther.
Oh my God, his work on Black Panther is ingenious.
I will say, look, I have to say, Ludwig like flexed on everybody with that motif from Black Panther theme, because it was like, that's aha, take me on all day. And I heard that moment, I was like, this dude really just flexed on everybody, but that's a whole nother conversation. He got away with that. Whatever, bro.
Mm-hmm.
He got away with that. I'm sorry. I heard that and I was like, that's aha.
Oh, interesting.
And I was like, do your thing, bro. Do your thing. Do your thing.
Now I gotta like listen to it again.
But no, like we like these guys because they come from a different perspective. They approach things different. Harkening back to the ending theme for Kamikaze, it's Ludwig's work on Tenet was one of my inspirations for the ending theme. His work that he did with Travis Scott, like that was one of the inspirations. Because it was a great mixture of electronic, but it was minimalist.
Yeah.
And you have someone who's like a rap and hip hop icon right now, which is Travis Scott, you know, coming on a record like that, which you don't normally hear that for Hans Zimmer. I'm sorry. You don't normally see that for a Nolan flick.
Right.
So for me, it was just kind of like a really beautiful marriage of hip hop and some EDM stylings and sound and classical arrangement. I thought it was amazing. People like Ludwig don't approach music the way everyone else does because they come from a place of artist work and whatnot that we know of as consumers. So when you go into making music from a particular point, a lot of people are coming in that I've been exposed to, a lot of younger people getting started. They're like, well, I guess since I am going into composition, I need to learn classical music. I need to be able to compose that way. Yeah. And I always tell them, don't necessarily, or I got to learn jazz theory. I need to compose that way. And I tell them all the time, like, that's something to definitely know. You should know that very well, and you should research it. And you should be adept in it to some degree. But don't let that override your natural musical inclinations. Or learn how to weaponize it in a way to make what you already enjoy doing more, you know, more contemporary, more useful on a professional level. Yeah. Like I love soul music for myself, so I do those same things in what I do.
I love that, and I think there's hearing you talk about that, I can already see so many parallels in so many other creative endeavors. I mean, you have the same thing with design. You have the same thing with, I mean, even like character design. If you only consume and look at like one type or one genre, one style, it's going to be very limited. So yeah, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, and in fact, even if we want to loop it back around to anime, one of the big criticisms of the anime industry over, let's say, the last 10, 15 years, that's been so self-referential that it's losing some of its spice.
Yeah, we were out a little story. I was in the studio with who was I with? We were actually working on some music for somebody else, and one of the vocal line that I used, I snatched that directly from an anime.
Oh, really?
No, it wasn't. It was the melody from what was it? It was from a video game, actually. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was from a video game. I'll think of it later on. I'll be like, yes, that's what it was. But I remember like thinking it was like, there has been plenty of times where I've taken like theme or like vocal lines and stuff like that from like some melodies or those consistent themes or motifs from like animes, and I've turned them into like vocal lines for the artists that I work with. Yeah. And I do this.
Sorry, dumb question. What's a vocal line?
Like a vocal melody. So like I'll sometimes do that for an artist and they won't realize that they're singing some melody from an anime. I do it for myself because I think it's funny, but it's just I think it's humorous. So later on, if it ever comes out, I gotta always say, you know what anime that from? Like I could just it's just something I do. I mean,
right.
It's a little Easter egg, a weeby Easter egg.
I mean, that's the reason why I'm bringing it up is all of this stuff feeds into itself, right? And it's like we all kind of need that extra diversity, and not just diversity doesn't stop with who you hire, in my mind. Mm-hmm. Diversity is a complete thing.
Yeah.
You know, but the only way that you get the complete pie of diversity is if you bring in people from different places. Right. And they share their ideas from different places. And that's why I agree with you on the anime tip. Like it is so normal to be able to like have like every time, like for example, like every anime character is Batman. Like it seems like every anime character is Batman. I don't know what the Japanese have against people having parents, but whatever it is, you know the character is going to be OP if both their parents are dead. Like, you know, like we all know that's gonna happen, right? We already know there's gonna be a simple piano piece whenever there's a train around. Whenever there's a train, there's this simple cascading piano piece somewhere around the pentatonic scale that's going to be playing when this person is near a train. I don't know why that happens, but it does.
Wait, do you have, okay, so you probably view a lot of like movies and TV shows very differently because you're paying attention to these things. What are your pet peeves when it comes to like scores in other media?
Oh my gosh. I hate that you asked me this question because there's so many of them.
Really?
Oh
Like,
my gosh. There's so
for
many.
normie like me, I'm like, oh, okay, this is fine. Like, I don't know, I can't tell what's a bad score, but I do know, like, I have my favorites, obviously.
No, there's no, in my mind, there's no such thing as a bad score.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a bad score. There are scores that don't fit and there are scores that do. I think of like films as like I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I kind of think of visual media like a pair of pants.
Mm.
And it's like not everybody can wear that pair of pants.
Oh.
You know? So it's like not every score can fit into that particular pair of pants. Sometimes
Mhm.
you have the right person in that particular pair of pants that it makes the pants look like a designer fit. Some people it looks like not your size. That's kind of how I view it, right?
That's. I think there it is. That's gonna be the title of this quarantine chat. Nacho size.
So there are things within a score that I like. And then there's a lot of things that I don't like. I people's overuse of French horns blows my mind.
Mm.
I blame Hans Zimmer, but
He loves some brass.
I mean, look, but his brass is on point. But it's kind of like every time the hero does something worth talking about, then it's a French horn is closely there behind. Like I'm here.
That'd be great to just have a parody of like the MCU and just like have like a French horn player like keeping up with like Captain
I know, right? Like French horn just follows behind Thor. Like
Yeah.
do something heroic. I don't like the underuse of oboes. Oboe is my favorite instrument, and it is the most sensual thing that you could possibly put into a song. And a lot of animes use oboes for those scenes like that. You have that nice little sensual moment where the hero and their love interest or whatever are having this moment where they're like supposed to be, I don't know, connecting in some non-hentai way.
Non-hentai way. I love it.
You're gonna hear an oboe. Right?
What I think about with oboes, right? Like connecting in a non-hentai way, just
right. But in American style stuff, even personally, I love that. That's my favorite instrument. Like that's my thing. I don't hear it enough in American style stuff, even though it would be way more appropriate than strings in a lot of those cases. But because of the context of jazz music and jazz theory, it doesn't work in a lot of American styles. So then you kind of lose that instrument in a lot of cases. Because you don't see a lot of American style stuff really going into jazz theory like animes do. Anime, even though everyone does it and it does get a little annoying at some point in time, they still have some of the best instrumentation and melodies you could think of. But Americans kind of lose out on that by having like certain other elements. I know Americans typically lean towards classical and rock a lot.
Right.
Or classic rock, not to be confused with the other two.
Yeah.
But we kind of lose out on a little bit of diversity in like instrumentation and where you can go. So that does bother me a bit. And then you have on the other side, people's over reliance on like, this does annoy me more now, is when everyone thinks of diversity, they think we need more urban music, and that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. Like, why are you using like 10-year-old Lex Luger drums in your score when it makes no sense why you should be having this? Like, everything isn't a trap song just because you're set in the inner city. Like, sometimes let the scene carry where it needs to go. Or people's like overuse of musical stereotypes as they go with certain ethnic stereotypes, that irks the hell out of me. That's been done. A lot of people are doing that now.
Yeah.
That bothers me.
Yeah.
Like, come on, just because you have certain people on in this particular thing doesn't mean you have to have every traditional instrument from their country.
Right.
Like, that's, to me, that's a slick form of racism. Like,
okay, like
calm
I
down,
love
bro.
the little there was an NPR story on that little Oriental tune, like dun 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 dun. It's like but it's not even recognizable by anyone in China. Anyone.
Oh my God, it's so aggravating.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That aggravates me.
Yeah.
It does.
Because I'm like, you guys could have shown us a different way of doing this, but someone was lazy,
right,
and didn't actually think what sounds well. They just see, oh, this person's Chinese. Let's throw in a bunch of Chinese instruments.
Right.
That'll make them happy. Like,
what was playing the last time I got Chinese food?
I know, right? Like, oh, they're Russian. Let's throw in a bunch of Russians. Like, shut up.
It's a very like shallow understanding of like diversity or like this character's background or whatever. Like, yeah. I would say, okay, it's appropriate if maybe it's set in an Asian country. Maybe. Hopefully we've outgrown that tune that I just hummed. But like, yeah, it's I think that's a really great point about how diversity is like, oh, throw in some rap music in there.
Yeah, like it doesn't do it. Like, I was raised in the country, so I'm Southern as it can be. Let's just go ahead and establish that. There's certain things that you get when you get, certain things that you're taught growing up that I kind of carried into my adult life. But one of the things that my father always taught me, if you're gonna do it well. And sometimes well means going deep into the particular media and not being afraid to do that. I know if you're busy, you don't have all the time in the world to go so far into it if your company is just doing massive yield of content or whatever. And I get that. Like, you don't want to go that far into it. But I have the time for that. So I'm going to be thorough every time. I want to know where this character comes from. But I also don't want to stop there. How has that changed?
Yeah.
Up until this point, like if you have a character that's from this background and then they're in this new space, they're part of the protagonist and the antagonist journey in a particular story.
Right.
How has their background affected where they are currently? And then how can I musically articulate that in some way that the audience is going to be able to identify with this particular character's moment or this particular scene or this particular character in general?
Right.
How do I do that? What's the best option there? Because sometimes it's not always the surface level identification stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to go dig a little bit deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that ties in really well with the way we approach character design as a team. Like we're really try to focus on sort of this almost a multi-level marketing, and that's really the wrong term for this. But
wait, you're gonna have to explain that.
Wow, multiple multiple levels of the character. They've got sort of this persona they project to the world. They've got
I see.
motivations and where they think they're going in life, but they've also got sort of their the stuff that sort of their non-negotiables that's buried deep, and sometimes that's the damage they have to sort out.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting, and I love Aaron. It was your father who said do it well. I kind of wonder, how do you practice and hone your craft?
I don't know if anybody else does this, but sometimes, so I kind of did this when I started teaching. When we started teaching online, there's exercises that I give my students all the time. And I'll have them go online and grab a video from like YouTube or something and just score that particular piece, or strip the audio out and do your own sound design for this particular 5-minute clip. And that's some of their assignments were like that. So for myself, I'll do the same thing. I'll go on YouTube and I'll like find a game video or something. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to score this 5-minute clip of this particular game.
Nice.
And I'll do that. And then I'll practice. And once it's done, I won't listen to it for like 5 days. And I'll come back to it and I'll be like, that's trash, or that's a good idea. And I kind of like test myself that way. I have to be honest, when I went to school for music, it was originally to be a composer. And then I kind of got sucked into the whole music industry stuff, but I always kept my foot in it, doing composition here and there over the years. But my experience working with artists has altered my perspective on composing greatly.
Yeah.
So even when I approach something, I have so much diverse experience in the industry that informs my compositional skill set.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me a bit of a mutant. So I had to like teach myself things that maybe a more seasoned composer has already like gone into and learned, maybe even on an educational level or in the field. I kind of had to put myself through my own unique form of paces to kind of keep up to snuff, but that's really part of my process. Just testing, constantly testing what sounds good and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And then going from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because when we first picked you to be our composer, there were a couple of musician friends of mine. I haven't even shared this with you, Alan, but
Oh, really?
a couple of musician friends of mine were kind of like a little hurt or a little like offended that I never asked them. But and I couldn't explain. I didn't have the word, but I think you're clarifying it to me, is that there's composers and there's musicians, and they're not always the same. Like, these people were musicians, like they were making songs and things like that. But I wasn't confident. Like, I had not seen them like try to compose music for a story.
Right.
And there's a medium. I think what makes, and I'll say this because there's a bit of bias here, but then there are case in points that we can go to when you talk about the Hans Zimmers or the Atticus Rosses or the Ludwig Göranssons, and so many more that have come from mainstream music to the compositional world, right? When I went to school to be a composer, the one thing that they never taught me in that particular course study was what people like. They never taught us that. It was, and I don't know if everybody else's, experience was similar that went to school to be a composer, but they never teach you about what people actually like to listen to.
Right.
That is like, because normally if you're a composer, you're getting hired by a company, and then they're choosing what it is that they think works well with that particular piece. And then you go home once the job is done, right?
Right.
When you're working with artist-based music in the music industry, what people like directly affects how effective you are as a music producer, a songwriter, an engineer. And you're literally basing how people's personal palettes of music around what to make. So the popularity of that particular music or your skill set is going to be directly affected by the consumer interest and taste. So that has greatly affected me as a composer, because I innately think, is this going to make somebody stand up and be like, yo, that shit was dope? Or is it going to make someone completely forget that this was here. And then how do I bring that same energy and then make it complement that scene? So instead of just saying, yo, that line in the score was dope, being able to say, yo, that scene goes hard. Like, I'm thinking like that. I don't, and my friends that are composers, we argue back and forth that way all the time, because they're just like, they can go way further into the music theory stuff that I have never, well, it's not that I haven't had an interest to, that I don't necessarily apply in day to day, because I know the consumer may not understand it. And I would more than likely confuse them with this ridiculous music theory stuff. Like, and I call it ridiculous only because the consumer palate can only take in but so much.
Right.
So with my music nerd friends, we love doing that thing. Yeah. We love doing the crazy music theory stuff. The thing is, but we also know that the average person can't appreciate it. Mm. So there's a bit of making it more palatable that we have to do when we're making music for an artist or we're working with a band. I do this all the time with the band for my company. Alex and my partners at Colony 13, when they work with an artist, like they're some of the best talented musicians in the city of Atlanta. But they don't, like, they not dumb themselves down, but they know how to fit into a particular space where where it can complement an artist. That is the same mindset I bring to being a composer. How do I make this super dope that someone is going to listen to a la carte, but is also going to equally complement this particular work, this visual medium? Yeah. And that's kind of something that when I talk to my students, I don't really have to tell them that, because a lot of them are coming from being music producers and songwriters to being composers. So there's a bit of, they're coming from the same perspective that I come from, but just going at it from the perspective of not having done it at all in that particular way. That is something that trips up a lot of composers. They don't know what people actually like. Like some composers that I've come across, they don't really care because they don't have to. Yeah. I mean, you're not, the people aren't deciding whether the score is great. They're going to pay to watch a film. So why should I really care about the contemporary musical palette? Not that you have to. I just do. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Because there are. Now you're making me think about like the scores I listen to just to listen to, and the scores I forget. As much as I love the Marvel movies, I don't really listen to a lot of the scores, except a few. Like Black Panther, Doctor Strange had a good one, but like the Avenger movies, I haven't really listened to.
I mean, there's some scores that I thought really cool that got underplayed. Black Panther was one that's like, they did that whole thing with TDE. So you have Kendrick Lamar in your soundtrack. Right. And like, come on, bro. Like, you have Ludwig Göransson, this like, that dude has done all the Childish Gambino songs from that I think of that we all listen to all the time. Like, come on, man. Like, you knew what you were doing with that. That's whatever. Like, the Iron Man one is kind of no brainer, but then even then, like some of those scores for like the Marvel movies, they're not really meant to be standout moments. Black Panther was, but that was more of a cultural experience. Yeah. The other films weren't really about that life. But then if I think of something like, I've just been binge watching the whole Justice League stuff. Man, the work, I think it's Brian Tyler. He's the one that works with Zack Snyder a lot. Like that. And no, Hans Zimmer did some of this, did that work too. Hans Zimmer's work in like the Snyderverse for DC. Like that score for Man of Steel is like, it still brightens my day. Like I hear that like Taking Flight score, that joint goes hard. Like I work out to that from time to time. Like,
oh my God, I have a bunch of a workout, like a nerdy workout playlist too. And one of them is Hans Zimmer's, I think it's Hans Zimmer, the Wonder Woman, like.
The Wonder Woman score. Oh my gosh, that.
Oh, good.
Was fire, dog. Like,
brilliant. Oh, that's so cool. Man, I'm learning a lot today. because I love music, but I don't really know that much about music. So this is very cool.
Look, you see somebody like Junkie XL and Hans Zimmer. Those guys like were music producers and rock band guys,
Right.
and then they go into the composition world and they just cleaning up. Like Junkie XL, I wouldn't even like. I would go to Junkie XL for a record. I wouldn't even just go to him for a song. That guy is a lexicon of music history in the rock and EDM space. Like that dude is like fire.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, good.
Are you gonna say something, Alan?
No, I was gonna agree with you. Like a lot of his like standalone stuff is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, like I mean that's why we love Tron.
Yeah.
Because it's Daft Punk.
Yes.
Rip.
I know. So sad. Okay. As a musician, composer, is there a lesson that you've had to learn the hard way? What was it, and how would you warn others to learn from your mistakes?
Maybe that. What are you barking at?
I was wondering where the barking was coming from.
Stop. Chill. They're outside. Something the dog. Anyway, I'm talking right now.
Oh, it's Judy.
If I had to say any lesson, patience. I'm 32 and I'm probably just now ready to start really working the way I really need to work. And it took, when I was younger, it was, when you're young, you're always like, hurry up and go get it. You know, like, I want to do this now. We'll do it right now. Like, calm down, bro. Like, give yourself time to get good at what you do.
Yeah.
And like, do jobs that help you move forward and grow. Sure. But make sure that you're doing jobs that help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
I always choose, I'm a glutton for punishment. Maybe that's a Capricorn in me. I don't know. But I'm normally just like, I'll do the hard jobs because are the ones that require a deep thought and analytics and all that type of stuff, because I would like to test my limits. I don't want to do something that, doing the easy stuff is cool. Doing the stuff that I know I can do in my sleep, there's a time for that. But for me, it's about growing my skill set and being the best possible version of myself. But that took years of time and patience and training and understanding my dexterity, understanding my do's and don'ts. But it took patience to be able to learn that. And if I hadn't have had it, I would have quit a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so brilliant. Yeah, that's so true. I love that advice for 20 something. I think I was definitely an impatient 20 something.
Weren't we all?
Yes, absolutely. So is there anything particularly challenging about working on the Kamikaze short so far? You mentioned a little bit of that in the beginning with the linear thing.
For me, it's just like changing my mindset, like not thinking about this as a game, because that's what I'm most used to. But thinking about this, like, I don't know, maybe it's just like, I guess for me, it's just managing my own overthinking.
Yeah.
Managing that, like, because I do like to get in depth, but in some stuff, it's like, bro, it's not that hard. You know, bro, it's not that hard. Chill out. That would be my own personal difficulty. Everything else has been really easy. Like working with you guys is like mad easy. If anything, it's probably one of the best jobs that I've had in a very long time.
Oh, yay!
Mainly because it's just like, well, everyone's a nerd. So that's nice. Everyone's super nerdy. So I don't have to like hide that part of myself. Normally I have to like kind of hide it from certain clients because they'll be like, oh, you're one of those. Yeah, like I have to sometimes, I'm honestly, it's just an occupational hazard. Not everybody's you. So with you guys, I can actually be myself, which is really nice. It's really fun. I can make references to anime and you guys will understand it. So when I do things like there's a whole part in the whole anime, there's a whole part in there where it was like, what was it, the Kamikaze thing? I don't know if I need to say that out loud, but there's a part in it where I made this like dramatic drop where it was just this anime moment, and I was like, I have to put this in. Like fun stuff like that I get to do is really, really enjoyable for me. I don't get to do that in the other projects that I take on, because it's like, yeah, so just this sounds good, it's cool, like, hey man, I heard this was in another game. Have you guys played that? No, I don't think we've ever played that game. It's like, it's your competitor.
Yeah.
Do you even play games? Like sometimes I have to say that. So it happens. So working with you guys has just been amazing. I don't have to hold back. I can actually enjoy myself.
Awesome. Yeah, let your nerd flag fly. Yeah, love it. And we're about to wrap up here, but I wanted to kind of ask you, what does self-care and self-kindness look like to you well, we have 2020, but 2021 during this pandemic?
Got to update the question.
Man, so I had, funny you say this. So I've had quarantine has forced 2020 forced a spiritual journey for me. So I'm
Wow.
much better, much more spiritually enlightened, physically healthier, and mentally healthier than I was going into it. And I'm very proud of that growth for myself. So first it was me learning the difference between selfishness and self-care, because one of those is inherently toxic and one of those is not.
You want to, can we hear your take on that, the difference?
I mean, like, people always, I don't know, like self-care is always like one of those like things. It's like not tawdry, but it's one of those, it's like, are you sure that's self-care, or are you just being an asshole? So pardon my language. Sorry.
That's totally fine.
But now understanding the difference between that, because there is still plenty of room for us to be kind and helpful to other people.
Right.
And I think that needs to be underlined. Like, everyone's having a hard time during quarantine. So everyone knows somebody that got COVID if they were the ones that got it. So being overly harsh and not being able to help others that are in need, even when you are able to, or being there for other people when you need to be there for people, because you never know. Like, I believe it was the author Flannery O'Connor that said, the life you save may be your own. So it's one of those things where I always keep that in mind, and understanding that self-care is me making sure that I'm at my capable best, and not necessarily, and putting myself in a position where that is a consistent state of being for myself, but always making room to be able to pour into others as I can, and then having the discernment of knowing who I need to pour into and who pouring into is going to turn into some life-sucking experience. But that's discernment, obviously. And then even for those people that I know that are just energy vampires, being able to like, you might need to take a step back and then look at what's going on in your life right now, because this might not be a healthy route. Even then, being willing to meet people where they are, per se. The way, and what was the other half that you said?
Self-kindness.
Self-kindness, yeah.
Self-kindness. Being patient with myself. Because I'm not typically. I completely blame that on the Capricorn in me. So overly harsh. But I'm a perfectionist. I'm constantly looking to enhance myself and be more efficient in my task and whatnot day to day. So what I do to manage that is I will have a day where I work out and I don't make music. I picked up the hobby of making jewelry, so I'll do that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to do with my hands. I live in the city, so the Southern boy in me requires me to do something with my hands. I grew up on a farm, so I'm used to like manhandling things or hunting or growing stuff. So I have to do something with my hands. So that's like my little tactile thing to do, other than music, which is my full-time job. But I will also take myself out on a nice sushi date from time to time, and I will go and eat all you can eat sushi.
Nice.
I'll do that from time to time. And that's really just a lot of my own personal self-care. Indian food is definitely a good self-care. Curry goat is self-care.
Curry goat is self-care.
Goat is definitely.
Good hashtag.
Yeah. Yes, curry goat is self-care. From time to time, just I don't know. Every once in a while, I'll go make I'll go make something for myself that's nice. Like I'll do like salmon and rice, and then a little nook bum, and I'll be okay.
Ooh, nice.
I just do little things here and there to remind myself this too shall pass, and everything will be okay.
Love it. Yeah. And we're gonna wrap up just a second. Any final words of advice for creatives out there?
Your art does matter, and you have a market, so find it. That's something that I
short and sweet.
Yeah, that's a tough one, because up until now, that has not been readily available and possible. If anything, the quarantine helped every musician on the face of the planet, because it forced everybody to sit down, and instead of going out, and we were all so, the music industry as a whole was so used to operating in a particular way, that when people started to go out and about, and when people had to stay at home, then they had to find their tribe another way. And so a lot of people discovered they have markets in other countries. They have markets in other groups of people that they never really paid attention to, or that they physically didn't have access to. But the internet gave you a gateway to find these other people. And so a lot of people discovered that the music that may not be popular here in your city, or amongst the people that you know readily available to, you have a fan base somewhere else that's a click away if you're willing to do the work to find them.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
That's something that was a discouraging factor from a lot of people. I know plenty of composers that are selling insurance right now that quit, or music makers that quit because they could never find their market. But now everyone's looking for something. Everyone's looking for their style, their niche audience, and it's easier to find now because everyone's online.
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron, where can people find you online?
So I have a Spotify that I do not update as much as possible. Do not update as much as I should.
Wait, is it under Aaron Neal? Or?
No, it's under my stage persona, which is Atlas. So I am on Spotify. I do have a couple of records on there. You can go find my Sailor Moon record, which I'm very happy about. I love that song. Then
we'll put your links in the video description too.
I'll put a large blinky text right here.
Okay. SoundCloud, and I'm also working on my Colony 13 website, which is going to have all of my company's music from all the music makers that I work with on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to be on there, and it's going to be a lot of cool VR content and stuff we're putting up there too.
That's awesome. Can't wait to see it.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for this amazing interview. I learned a lot. This is so cool. I can't wait to see the final short with all your music. And I can't wait for our readers and fans to check that out too. Thank you so much for your hard work on this. Like, seriously.
Thank you guys for being dope.
Thank you for being dope.
Yeah. All right. Well, tune in for another quarantine chat. Feel free to like and subscribe and comment, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hit the bell. Hit the bell. Hit the bell.